we can contribute to the transformation of the larger culture. Second, spirituality. Well, Pieslap understands spirituality as being about our longing for human connection, about experiencing mutual recognition in a way that affirms our humanity and inner goodness to promote a caring, compassionate, loving, kind, and connected world. Now, politics is one of the main ways PieSlap differs from the many other groups which focus only on the law and spirituality. So to us, politics kind of means that if citizens can see in a public space changes in socially relevant areas that can enhance their ability to feel connected or cared for, heard, and justly and equitably treated, they will support these changes. And through the political process, will urge their representatives to pass new laws that reflect and embody those values. So to sum it up in a sentence, PieSlap wants to bring about a spiritually informed approach to law and social change by integrating changes in the law brought about by political action in a way that emphasizes our connectedness and our inherent desire to move forward in living in a more compassionate, caring, and loving world. So there's the little intro there.
Thank you, Perry. And I would add maybe just for today that the focus that I glean from PieSlap that I so appreciate, and maybe this is just because I'm a psychotherapist more than I am a lawyer, I was a lawyer a while ago, is the emphasis on human experience. What is it actually like? What's it like for a lawyer to have a client in the courtroom? What's it like for the client? Because oftentimes in law school, we don't get much training in how to deal with our own personal experience. So I thought maybe we would just start by using a check-in that just is a reflection on your own personal experience in this moment. So maybe just a couple of words to describe what it's like to be you in this particular time on this particular day. And I would say for me, I am concerned about what's going on in the world. I have a dear friend that just got diagnosed with breast cancer. So it's an anxious time and one that arouses my concern. So I'll go around my own diagram here. So Libby, would you be willing to go next?
Sure. Well, I was weeping in meditation today. I think disillusioned and disoriented would describe me.
Thank you. Kristen, you're next on my array.
Hi, thank you. I think there's a lot of frustration that I feel because it just makes me, with all the disillusionment and everything that's going on, I want to do more and I want to do it all now, you know. So sorry, that's my audio there. The frustration is high in that level, but I'm also excited because I do see and feel more and more groups getting together to take action, to change, to help.
Indeed. So that's our community. Thank you. Michelle Leering, would you go next?
Yeah. I think I vacillate between, sort of having a reignited fire in the belly, as I would call it, and then another part that's really quite anxious about what's going on and figuring out what to do next. And that's on the level of the world and of our neighbor, the United States. Of course, I'm Canadian, and even issues within my own family. Lots going on. So.
And so another fellow Canadian, Jenny Dodelsky.
Hi. So I feel this kind of radical disjuncture between the horrors of what's going on in the world and my own joy in being up on this beautiful island on Georgian Bay. Even with the heat, it's great, and I'm feeling very, very tuned in and connected to the natural world, and I get so much joy from that. And then I toggle back to listening to the news, and it's more disorienting than yeah.
Indeed, disorienting is a good word. Thrown, maybe. Right. Stu, you're next.
Oh, thank you. My name is Stu Webb from Minneapolis. I'm now on vacation in northern Minnesota. Hope you can see the view,
Mm,
Detroit Lake, with the family. And I'm filled with the love of nature and with love of family. Very happy to be with you guys. Love you all. Love is
right.
where it's at, beyond our brain thinking. Over and out.
Indeed. Indeed. So Nanette, even though I can't see you, could you check in a bit? She's unmuted at least, but still mute. So maybe we'll come back to Nanette. Perry, on the beach.
Well, maybe that's the wrong background. The particular word that describes how I feel seems to be a common theme amongst us, which is anxious. Very, very anxious as things unfold here. It's pretty clear that we are already in an authoritarian society and government. And I've been trying to figure out ways to directly combat that personally. And I've discovered this group called Indivisible, which seems very, very organized and is promoting a lot of events and meetings and movements. And I'm determined to get involved in that so I don't feel so helpless as a bystander.
Right. Right, indeed. So that helplessness shows up as well. Christina, would you go next?
Hi. I'll echo a lot of what has already been said here. This idea of the uncertainty in our world, and particularly I'm being in the US, what I'm experiencing here in the USA. Also within my family, it just seems to be a theme throughout, just this idea of uncertainty and how to live with that, still find my peace, my center. And then I guess the second word being hopeful. It's maybe a contradiction, but even events like this kind of gathering, it fills me with hope that people want to gather, people want to support each other and make a change. Thank you.
Indeed. And I didn't ask folks to say where you are, but it might be helpful. So I'm in Cape Ann, in Gloucester, a couple of you from Canada. Christina, where are you physically?
I'm Stu's neighbor down the road, Minneapolis.
Oh, in Minneapolis. Okay, gotcha. And David Hoffman, good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Duncan. Thank you. Broadcasting from Acton, Massachusetts. The two words that come up for me right now are daunted and overjoyed. And I'm feeling daunted and overjoyed about the same exact thing, which is that I got invited by the Internal Family Systems Institute to offer training for lawyers and mediators. And so it starts in October. I'll put a link in the chat at some point if people want to see what it's about. but it's an opportunity to explore a heartfelt form of legal practice and mediation practice. And it's daunting to figure out how to put it together, but it's so exciting to be doing it.
Right, right. I'm familiar with IFS and it's great stuff. So I'm glad you're doing that. Marjorie Silver. Can you, there she goes. Now, wait,
Checked
there
it
you
too
are.
often. First of all, I'm delighted to see all of you, but especially David, who I've never seen on a PISLAP call, and whose work I've admired for decades. And he doesn't look like he's aged at all. I'm in my happy place right now, which is out on the east end of Long Island. The weather's been terrific, and I've been swimming almost every day. And my classes are starting up, so I'm also feeling somewhat stressed by getting my Canvas page, which was probably a meaningless word to all of you, but or not all of you, some of you teach, getting that all set. So I'm able to cabin the horrors of what's going on in the world for big portions of the day and limit my exposure to all the awful news, and frequently think about the Buddhist saying, suffering is wanting things to be other than they are. So I choose not to suffer. I have to keep reminding myself of that.
Indeed. Thank you. So Rand, I think you're next. And since we only have an hour or so to be together, I would just ask people to be brief.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good. Well, I am actually hooked up to a kidney dialysis machine. I'm here with Ann Friedman, my wife, who is doing wonderful work supporting my treatment. And I also have Parkinson's disease. I have serious health issues, and I'm undergoing some surgery in a couple of days. So I have a lot of sense of fragility, and I'm a little scared about all this.
Of course.
I'm very, very aware of the terrible things that are going on. The cover story of the New York Times about the Mayan women and the impact of Trump's taking away the USAID funding. It was just a little example, not so little. I'm just very aware of it. And
Yeah.
I guess the main thing I want to say is I think that social systems tend to want to box us into various not so good structures. And the great challenge of humanity is having some way to resist and have some freedom to fashion more genuine connections. And I'm so happy that this group is working on so many different ways of doing that. It's just great to be here. Thank you.
Right. Well, bless you for being among us. So Bruce, I think you're next.
Thank you. I'm participating from the unceded lands of the Wampanoag people on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I am mystified. I cannot comprehend what is happening with our species. The Gaza Holocaust has tortured me. What is happening with Trump is surreal. The ironies of it are very, very painful to me. I am suffering. And at the same time, I recognize that this is a truly miraculous experience that I'm having, that the world is filled with great, great beauty. And I'm appreciative, accepting, and suffering. Thank you.
Thank you. So Sylvia, would you go next? And then
Let's
I'm
see.
gonna ask people to mute themselves. I can't mute people, Nanette, unless you make me a host.
Yes, I will make you a host and I'll also mute myself.
That would be great. Thank you. But Sylvia's
So Kevin.
unmuted, thank goodness.
Okay, I am. I just had a 1 hour experience with Dr. Joe Dispenza on a Zoom call for an hour before this. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but it ended with a half-hour meditation where we were present to our new life. So I come to this meeting in a very good space. And so I am present to what's happening with an understanding that there are cycles, and when one system collapses, it opens the opportunity for a new one to arise. And I see Trump as expediting and speeding up the collapse of our faulty democracy. I mean, it has many beautiful aspects, but it also has some deep faults. And it has become, where our political system is full of lies and politicians who lie to us and who vote for things that they know are destructive. So it's time we need a change. And I'm very, very excited about unitive justice, providing a viable alternative for that, and being arising at this moment where the old system is collapsing and the new can arise. And I see so
I'm
much
gonna ask you
evidence
to cut
that that's
it
happening.
short if you would, because we've got a
I'm
lot of
done.
people to introduce.
I'm done.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. And I would ask folks just to refer to their inner world just for the check-in. There's lots going on in the outside world that we could deal with. But I'd like to start with just what it's like in your mind and heart. So Nanette, if you would go next briefly, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you, Duncan. I I was struck by what Bruce expressed, and I have many very similar feelings, both, tremendous grief over what's happening in the Middle East right now. As a Jewish person who's been concerned with Israel, Palestine for many, many years. So it brought me to spiritual activism years ago. Of course, deep concern about what's happening here in the US, but also, feeling how powerful the community that is building around the country is becoming, that growth is really palpable to me. And also I was very, very happy to see just such a rich grouping joining together today, and that also brought gladness to my heart. And it is truly a miraculous and awe-inspiring world that we live in so many ways. So I'm just grateful to be here with all of you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Philip, would you go next?
I choose to be optimistic. I noticed that Stu Webb's on this morning's call, and I'm so grateful for the work that he's done and the impact he's had on our society. And I believe that each of us could look to the work that Stu's done as an example for the potential for each of us in the way we could also impact society. I've had a vision for years that conflict of every kind would be routinely resolved peacefully with love, compassion, empathy, kindness, and gratitude for the benefit of all. I recognize that that's not the world we live in, but I dedicate my life to nudging the world I live in that direction. I'm going to focus on what I have control over, the thoughts I choose to believe are true, the words I choose to speak, and the action I choose to take. And
thank you.
That's what I got to say today.
Makes sense to me. So Natalie, would you go next? And again, please keep it brief so that we can have some kind of communal conversation afterwards.
Sure. I joined a bit late, so is it just kind of sharing an internal check-in?
Yeah, just what's it like to be Natalie this morning or this afternoon?
So I'm a law professor about to start a new semester with a bunch of first-year students, and it's both, exciting to welcome a bunch of new students in to the profession and a little overwhelming to do so with kind of the current state of the world. But I, remain hopeful, and it's such a privilege to get to be a part of their journey.
Indeed, thank you. And Eve from Uganda, my goodness.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eve, Executive Director at NMF Uganda. I work with NMF Uganda and Trade Junior School. And Trade Junior School is a unity of justice school. That is why I'm here. I believe this is a place that I can be in and learn more, something that I can implicate at the school that I come from. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for the work in the school. The next person's name I can't read. Jgilgoff.
Yeah, I need to change my name. It's Julie Gilgoff. And
Julie, okay, that's pronounceable. I could deal with that.
I know some of you. I found PySlap as a law student at CUNY Law School and Nanette and collaborated, and now I'm a law professor too at DePaul in Chicago, and I just recently moved to Evanston, kind of fleeing. I was teaching at IU before, where the censorship and draconian governance is very much alive. So I feel like I've my grandfather was implicated in the McCarthy era, and I kind of have some of this intergenerational trauma being triggered right now by the current administration. So also dealing with a lot of fear while trying to be grounded in my new surroundings. I'm really enjoying Evanston and the beaches here. So nice to be with you all.
Well, welcome. And Kathleen, I don't see your photo, but I hope you're there.
I am. I'm in Northern California, outside San Francisco. And the greatest thing that happened to me in the last week is I got to make a court appearance in the Veterans Court in San Jose. And this judge has been leading a Veterans Court for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. Just phenomenal, very spiritual experience. I felt like I was floating in the air when I walked out of his courtroom. So thanks.
How lovely. I'm so glad. We need some of that. Lyle Baker, how are
Hi.
you?
I'm fine. Apologies, I had to deal with a student briefly, but I'm back. Can you hear me? Is that?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Okay. For those who, I'm a law professor at Suffolk University and serve on the city council in Newton, Massachusetts as well. But I've been working on suicide prevention, as Duncan knows, and I'm trying to put together a new course for the fall term called Leadership in Crisis Management, of which responding to someone in deep distress is one of the crises. So if people have thoughts along those lines, I'd be glad to hear them. But I also want to put in a plug for anything David Hoffman offers about family systems. I've seen David in action, and I don't want to embarrass him, but I would certainly think it's a great opportunity.
Indeed.
And I may have to break off at some point again to be with a student, but I want to listen to it as much as I can. Sorry. Thank you.
I appreciate that. We all have lives. Thank you for being here. Janet or Jeanette, I don't know. I'm guessing Janet.
Hi. I am glad to be here, feeling a little frustrated dealing with the DMV and car insurance and just general bureaucracy. But currently moving from Utah to Vermont to be in a political and social climate that's more in alignment with my values and work. And I'm currently working on, I lead nature connection practices in the context of earth law and earth law education.
Lovely. Thank you. Kim.
Hi, I'm an artist in Oakland, California, and I do artwork and community organizing based in justice, and love is the foundation of justice. So bringing people together as a community in order to provide safety, working a lot with unhoused communities, which is a favorite a favorite for both sides of the political spectrum to target for harm, and organizing legal clinics and such lately, and trying to come up with other ways of keeping people safe in a very stressful, difficult environment.
Indeed. Thank you. Let's see. Anne Friedman. I think we haven't heard from you. And you're there with your husband, yes?
How do I figure out how to unmute?
And
Here. I'm gonna speak on Rand's camera.
okay, there you are.
Because I can't unmute mine. And I'm just gonna say I'm glad to be here. And I think spiritual connections among us, we need to cultivate.
Right. I think Kathleen at Casey asked to pass on this one, but Kathleen, I think we haven't heard from you.
Yes, I already spoke.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've heard from everybody. Let me just say a little bit, perhaps to plant a seed in people's minds. What I hear is just a huge and yet, that there's so much that is concerning out there. And yet there is local joy, there are relationships to cultivate, there's beauty around us. And I heard a lot of and yet, and those are my two favorite words. So one of the things I'm curious about is how we can learn to suffer better. That there's so much suffering around, and there are spiritual practices that help not to eliminate suffering, but to help us to be able to tolerate it. Mindful practice for me is about that. It's not about feeling better. It's about being mature in the way that we feel at all, and to know what's true around us. So perhaps as a jumping off place, we could start with what you think would be useful for us as a community, or for you as an individual, to help deal with all of this anxiety and concern and topsy-turviness of the world, while preserving the local love and appreciation of beauty. What might we do together? What do you suggest we do individually? Thoughts about that? Unless that's not the right thing to think about, in which case you're welcome to put something else in the hopper. Yeah, Philip.
I think it's helpful to acknowledge that it's simply a package deal. We live in a world that's not perfect, and what we focus on grows. And I choose to focus on love, compassion, empathy, kindness, and gratitude. Those are my LCEKG is what I use. I sign my email I have for years, LCEKG, to focus my thoughts and my heart on the positive, not the negative. Acknowledging that the negative exists, acknowledging that there is harm in the world, but choosing to focus on what I myself can do to be a force for positive change in the world.
Kristen, I see your hand up.
We go. Just wants to unmute. Thank you. It's the first meeting that I've attended, and I swear it's miraculous how it all came about, because I signed up for your newsletters before. So I'm not a lawyer, but I was going to study when I actually dropped out of law school, and it's okay. I love my life and the adventures I've been on, but I just love supporting the people like you guys who go out there, and psychotherapists, in support of change and social reform and justice and all the other good stuff that we know about. So as you were saying, if there's just some ideas, because I'm not yet used to how it usually works. I'm busy taking down all the links. Thank you, David Hoffman. I am a mentor by trade, if you would, and I do that for a living here virtually. It's actually virtually. We could, for an example, a specific subject, and open up a cohort for anyone who's interested in that specific subject, whatever it may be. If you feel, or if there is enough interest from the community and anyone else you reach out to on your mailing list, for example, through your connections, there could be, I would say, bi-monthly or something like that, different cohorts to better something that would help people more through the times.
Right, just to feel that connection. Indeed. So Libby, I see your hand.
I'm really taken with what Sylvia said about something like collapse and emergence. And then, we're caught in a time where everybody's, the people I listen to, the blogs I read, say, let's protect democracy. But before this horrible election, I was imagining we need a new constitution because of the difficulties in the one we have. That seems like a ridiculous project at the moment, but if indeed we can be grateful that so many people can see that we are in such crisis and such implosion, that perhaps what is emerging, love, we fall back on each other. Is there some calling that we kind of can coalesce around to support what's trying to emerge?
Indeed, and it's such a difficult thing to tolerate when some things are not, they're not working well, and other things need to be working better. And how do we discern which ones we're going to leave behind to compost and which ones we're going to grow as we move into the future? Jenny.
So I think there are kind of two different urgent things going on out there that all of us could participate. One is, mitigating urgent harm, right? There's a lot of that out there, and some of you have the skills for that. And the other is contributing to building positive alternatives. And that's the part that attracts me. And I think what's happening right now for me is I'm trying to figure out a particular localized issue. So it might be workers' co-ops. That's one thing I know a little bit about and want to know more about. And it might be housing solutions. So specific, relatively small scale, but things that will also shift people's bigger understandings, like of what private property means. And so this might be a group where, we could, and drawing in other people as well, put out a few topics where some people actually have concrete information about stuff happening. Because that's what I feel sometime in the next year, I'm going to be ready to say, okay, this is it. I'm going to just pick this thing to make it be what I want to, where I want to contribute, but something concrete, but with wider implications.
And I hear a kind of middle ground then between the individual and the systemic. It would be a project that is larger than individual, but smaller than the whole system. And that gives you more leverage in a way. It gives you something to focus on, and you could actually have consequence. Gotcha. Others. David.
So there are two things that I feel called to right now, and they're both very different. One is just being part of political protests and witnessing, trying to make change in the world, help to create critical mass, to resist the tide of terrible things that is flowing out of Washington right now. The second, but when we began today, we talked about our definition of spirituality as having to do with connection. So the second thing I'm trying to do is to connect more with people that I disagree with through dialogue and to facilitate dialogue. For a long time, I felt like so overwhelmed by terrible things going on in the world that I didn't feel like I could stand in a place of facilitation. But I now find myself facilitating dialogue in my synagogue between people who are primarily concerned about Gaza and others who are primarily concerned about the survival of Israel, and try to help people understand each other better. And I'm doing the same thing in my co-housing community. And I think that as I look around this Zoom room, I see a lot of people for whom one of their superpowers is helping people understand each other. And I think doing that will make me feel less disconnected from the people who voted for Trump.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I fully support that notion of helping people to talk to each other. It's what I do for a living. So Marjorie.
Yeah, what David just shared reminded me of something that Parker Palmer, and if you all aren't familiar with his writing, I recommend it. That he convened a conference. I don't remember what the subject matter was. This was many years ago, of people who disagreed with one another. And rather than have them state their positions to one another, he had them tell their stories of origin, how they came to their viewpoints. And it was a really successful gathering. So I think that, complements what David's trying to do. And, I personally find it hard to enter into dialogue with people I vehemently disagree with. So more power to you, David.
There was a group in Cambridge called the Communications Project or something, and they have changed their name, but their basic approach is tell me a story that helps me to understand your experience and the position you're currently taking, which is very different from tell me what your position is, and then we can argue about that position. But it's part of why I wanted to start with personal experience today, because I do think that's how we connect with one another initially, and then maybe we can talk about things that are a bit more abstract. I have a saying of mine from Parker Palmer that is, violence is what happens when we don't know what to do with our suffering. And that made a lot of sense to me. Lyle.
So I would like to pick up on the theme that just David talked a little bit about, and also Marjorie and you. It seems to me that as a legal educator, I'm very interested not only in my own development, but my students. But it would be helpful to me to the extent that any of you have developed these prompts where people tell their story, like you just indicated, Duncan, that enables them to come forward and be authentic and real without being judged in the moment. And I think that would be an asset to my law students as well as to me. So to the extent that any of you've got anything in writing that you're willing to share, I'm just lbaker@suffolk.edu.
Sure. Thank you for that. Stu, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you. We're all thinkers because we come from law student, law classes, and thinking is all from our bicameral brain, which has two parts. We're always talking opposites. Love and fear, love and fear. We try to hold that love and then we read the news. We are caught up in our thinking. We always have been. That creates war and peace, two opposites. Love is beyond the brain. Consciousness is beyond the brain. Consciousness is the love that we are, and we have forgotten that. We get caught up in our crazy thinking, and thinking is stinking when it comes to that.
Indeed.
Expressions of love is a miracle. If any of you took the course in miracles, you understood that the miracle was an expression of love, which was designed to overcome the dichotomy, the illusion, the duality of our thinking. But we can bypass the thinking by, if you love, if you be the love first, then you can do the thinking, but you have to hold the love first.
Reminded how
The
the
connection.
change
I love
in
you
our
all,
hearts.
and that's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much.
And whoever else is that's speaking, please mute yourselves.
Do you feel warm?
Thank you.
Do you feel warm?
Okay.
Do you feel warm?
And
Yeah.
Nanette, can you mute people? Thank you.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
So
sorry, I
Kath-
can't mute myself. I don't have the little switch.
Oh, okay. Well, then if we could just ask you to mute yourself in the flesh.
Okay.
So Kathleen, would you go next?
Yes. Something that I'm trying to figure out how I can participate in is working with the unhoused. So a couple of years ago, I read Rough Sleepers about homelessness and healthcare in Boston. And I went back there and I spent a couple of hours with Jim O'Connell, who is the physician who started Boston Healthcare for the Homeless 40 years ago. And the work that he does, which is what Rough Sleepers is about. And California has a new court process called care courts, which are to help the people with serious mental health issues who are homeless. So they have an opportunity to go into court. It's not a forced process. And they have an attorney and they have a supporter, and someone files a not a brief, but files a statement with the court that they know of this person and this person could use some help. And so the court process links behavioral health to the person, and the person gets behavioral health assistance. And part of it is housing. And this is new in California in all the 58 counties in the last year. And so and I'm going back to Boston. I'm going to a family memorial service, and I was thinking about Jim O'Connell, and I still wonder if there's some way to make some connection. And the other thing I think about is somebody teaches at Suffolk Law School.
Yes, Lyle Baker does.
Okay. Well, anyway, I was thinking about Jim O'Connell maybe giving a presentation at a law school so that law students are aware of, practices to help the homeless and help people get into housing and get the kind of care they need. And Jim O'Connell sure is the guy to know in Boston. So that's just sort of my ramble.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your rambling. Bruce, you have your virtual hand up.
Thank you again. I feel that I want to offer a very pragmatic focus. The threat to democracy, as I understand it in the United States, was severely exacerbated by the evisceration of the Voting Rights Act, and particularly the Supreme Court's decision in Citizens United. And when I think about what are the arrows in our quiver, as opposed to the spiritual, communal, personal exemplar, all that I think is left is the vote. If we lose the vote, then the kind of militarization, and fascization, if that's a word, that we're witnessing, I needn't go on. And so, to the extent that there is a focus on our activities, I mean, everybody does what they feel most passionate about, whether it be housing or the environment or whatever it may be. But I would suggest that the message that we want to take forward has something to do with quote unquote genuine democracy and equality. And that in that sense, equality, that I don't hate you because you're a Trumper. I indeed imagine I understand the urges that produce that behavior. That understanding the importance of the vote. Sometimes that gets down to ranked choice voting, which I think is also something that's very important and to try to help the populace understand. So I won't ramble more than that, other than to say that in terms of the real world, as opposed to, forgive me for that real world, as opposed to the more spiritual, communal world, I think that that's a tremendously important focus. So thank you for permitting me to speak. I'm
Right.
complete.
Right. I mean, they're both legitimate worlds, right? And it's hard to navigate having an inner life and an outer world. That's what we're here to learn how to do. I would also just share something that I heard that David Hoffman said. I'm assuming he actually said it, which was that when he graduated from Harvard Law School, he realized that his left brain ate his right brain. And, and I do think that that's part of what we suffer from. That's what Stu's talking about thinking, that it's just so hard to put Humpty Dumpty back together again after we get split apart in law school. It's just hard. So, others. Are we talking about the right thing? Is this what this community needs to wrestle with, or is there something else that feels more salient? Kim, you have your hand up, and Kathleen still has her hand up, but I think that's just leftover.
So when you initially brought up suffering and dealing with suffering, where my mind went was Gandhi and redemptive suffering. And of course, he studied a lot of the Gospels in order to develop the practice of nonviolence, and the redemptive suffering came from Jesus. And then I also think of the freedom to live by love. One thing that I keep trying to take apart, like, if the law is love, what does that really mean in terms of our legal systems, in terms of our movements, in terms of our families, how our families operate, and our places like schools and workplaces. It upends everything, because what we typically live by is dominance, not love. And love is always rooted in relationship. And so when we look at non-cooperation with an unjust law, you could instead frame it as, I'm taking the freedom to live by love. So instead of always pushing against the other as your opponent, which separates, it doesn't bring together. Love brings together. When you're always looking at resistance, you're looking at separating. And so, but of course, you can't cooperate with what is not just, right? That's not loving either. And so you're claiming the freedom to live by love. And is that going to cause suffering? Yes, it is. But for me, that is something that I think about a lot, that I feel like I don't have enough courage sometimes, a lot of times, for the risks involved. But that is something worth risking everything for. And if that is why you're suffering, if you know that's why you're suffering, I think that gives it a lot of meaning, and you can offer a lot.
Mm-hmm. I just think it comes with the territory of caring. It just has to. Jenny.
So I was responding to what somebody was saying about where's our real passion? And I realized that for me, it's about shifting my own and everyone's relationship to the more than human community. So for example, I appreciated Parry's statement about spirituality, but it was all about human to human. And I think for me, it's really important to recenter our relationship to the more than human, to the whole Earth community that we live with. And until we do that, I think we're going to be in trouble. But I will say that it's not easy for me to translate that into what I was talking about before of, a concrete, practical project that would facilitate that shift. But it is that shift that actually matters the most to me right now.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming many of you are familiar with Nature's Trust and Christina Wood's work out in Oregon. Good stuff. Sylvia.
Yes, so as I outpicture my new life, suffering is not going to be a part of it. My new life is joy, peace, love, good health, fun, abundance, all of those things. And there's no place there for suffering. And I don't believe that suffering is necessary. When Trump was first elected, he took over the real estate in my brain. And it was very clear to me that it was going to make me sick, physically ill and mentally ill if I continued in that space. So I just stopped. And now I hold Trump in a space. In fact, I try to swim every other day, and I do mantras as I swim. And one of my mantras is Donald John Trump, I'm present to your inherent goodness and the humanity that we share. J.D. Vance, I'm present to your inherent goodness and the humanity that we share. And Elon Musk and the 6 people on the Supreme Court. And that was like my freedom. And when and I know absolutely that there is inherent goodness in Donald Trump. He's just so disconnected to it. But I think that focusing on the disconnected part will not help him get present to what's there and what's possible. Anyway, I just believe that we can manifest from, as Stu wrote in his chat, love can end conflict. Yes, if we can fully be in a place where we are present to the inherent goodness of every human being and the humanity that we share, the transformation will move more quickly, and it won't include suffering. And we will create a new world in that way. Thank you.
Yes, I agree.
we thought you would. It's just fascinating to me that again, here's the end yet, right? That there's something about love and how powerful it can be to transform us all. And the other side is suffering, which some people experience. I'm not sure what to do with the paradox of that, but it seems to be here among us. Janet.
Yeah, hi. I really love this conversation about depolarization and, deep listening. And I like to lift up nature as a common ground that we are all in places, and these places are common ground for our choices, our lifestyles, whatever it is, our viewpoints, our belief systems. If we go back to that as a point of connection with other people, I think that there's deep healing and just a level of depolarization that can be found in that. And so many conflicts are based on fighting over places. So instead of fighting over them, connecting with them, like Israel, Gaza, for example, if there was connection and protection of that place rather than fighting over ideology, I think a lot of healing would come from that. And I really loved, I also want to say, I really loved I didn't catch the person's name who was talking about bringing in the voices of the earth, but yeah, I think that's something that I've dedicated my life to, is teaching people how to listen to the voices of the earth and the community of life, and then include that in politics and in law and in decision making on levels of, I don't think we're there yet nationally, but citizen assemblies and within corporations and city governance and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was Jenny, I think, that was referring to that. So I think the two of you can link up and connect about the more than human.
Give me a second, I have to depart. Yeah.
So David, I see your hand again.
Yeah. With regard to the human part, I just want to double click on something that Marjorie said about stories and narrative and personal accounts. It's one of the ways that we can see the humanity in the people with whom we disagree. Also, the quote, Duncan, from my law school experience, I didn't come up with this. I got this from a mediator who said that for her, going to law school was like having her left brain circle around her right brain and eat it. And I wish I could remember who said that, because I'd like to give her credit for a very thoughtful way of describing what law school was like.
Right. And I will say that in my career, I've worked with a number of lawyers, and that's a lot of our work together, is just reacquainting them with their bodies, with their hearts, and just what makes them a human being. Because it's as if the profession is saying you should just be this rational, mechanical thinker person and not have a body, not have a stomach, not have a heart. And that's part of the reason I decided not to be a lawyer. Jenny, you're back.
Yes, I just want to say one thing, sort of to Stu. So my little church sings the hymn, "What does the Lord require of you?" To seek justice and love kindness and walk humbly with your God. But we are changing the words to that and singing, "What does love require of you?" And I'm trying to use that as a guide in the sense that ultimately all these big things matter deeply, but so do each of our daily interactions. Are we manifesting what love requires of us, or are we getting angry or impatient, or anyway?
Stu, you want to add to Jenny here, or go off on your own tangent? What would you like?
Yes, I just say my understanding of what I've come to with my collaborative law work and consciousness, the consciousness that keeps us alive is love. And it's consciousness of all sentient beings, not just us. We're about the only ones I know of that have a bicameral brain. Most of them have one. Animals mostly have one brain. They are that love. Plants have sentient beings, not just human beings. We're the ones that are messing it up. We have to get to love instead of trying to argue about our rightness and wrongness. That's our brain messing things up. Beyond the brain is the love that we are. Thank you, Phil, and thank you all, Sylvia. Love, there's no opposite to the love that we are. Not a romantic love, it's not a sexual love.
Right.
The love that we are. A feeling. It's a feeling. It's not a noun, it's not a verb. It's a feeling.
Right.
I love you. Over and out.
Right. And God forbid that lawyers would base their lives on a feeling. But maybe that's part of what we're coming to here, that part of what needs to compost, what needs to be left behind, is this notion of individual rational beings fighting for limited resources. And that is so deeply ingrained in our culture. That, I mean, there's some people that say it's easier to think about the end of the earth than it is the end of capitalism. And we may actually be there, that we would arrive at the end of the earth before we arrive to the end of capitalism. But the change is so daunting. So I do think that what we're circling around is a change that we can make in community about how we are together. The overt conversations about love is moving to me, that we can have these conversations and not be embarrassed. So other thoughts, Philip.
How I interpret what Stu talks about is that for me, I believe that every human being at any given point in time can simply choose to be kind. It's a choice. And in every moment we have that choice that presents to us in the present moment. And our world would be completely transformed if simultaneously 8 billion people on this planet simply chose to be kind, simply chose to do the next right thing. Pretty simple solution, one that we haven't achieved yet, but it's just choose to be kind. That I think, one of the things I learned from Stu years ago was, love is the answer. It's pretty short, pretty simple, short statement. Love is the answer. And it's a choice away for anyone. I choose to love the innocent child that Donald Trump once was. That's how I deal with Donald Trump. I simply choose to love the innocent child that he once was, rather than allow him to take up my emotional and mental real estate with the current person he's chosen to be. Even Donald Trump could choose to be kind in the next moment. The kindness is just a choice away. I choose to believe that my life is a result of the choices I've made. And at any point in time, I can choose to be kind. And I remind myself of that on a daily basis.
Thank you. Indeed. Marjorie.
Yeah, I love that oh, I am unmuted. Okay. I love that in theory, but I think about how much pain is in the world and how hard it is for people who are suffering so much pain to be kind. I mean, I started being kind to every stranger after my first meditation retreat decades ago. I found myself all of a sudden walking down the streets of New York City, smiling at everybody. And, you know, that has stayed with me. And I get great joy from that. But, you know, just like, I mean, I love Stu. I love his ideas. I don't see how we make that happen in the world other than individual by individual.
Mhm.
They're not ideas, my friend.
Sorry, Stu?
They're not ideas.
Mm,
It's the flow that we are.
right. I'm
Okay.
wondering if folks are familiar with Richard Rohr, who's a Catholic priest, and he has this notion that there's a relationship between contemplation and action. And I think somehow that's again what we're circling around, is what's the relationship between our inner spiritual life and whatever contemplative practices we may have, and then how we manifest them out in the outside world. And that being on the edge of that, the inner and the outer, feels like the challenge, I think, at least for me personally. We should probably finish up sometime soon. Anybody else have burning things that they wish to say before we say goodbye to one another? Nanette, do you want to say some words of farewell?
Sure. Thank you, Duncan. Just want to thank Duncan for leading this conversation with empathy, with soul, and really opening up the opportunity for our community to connect at this particularly painful and difficult time. And I think it was an excellent theme that we circled around, and felt like we were touching some, you know, some deep parts of ourselves. So really appreciate it, Duncan, and everyone for sharing and for joining PieSlap. We will be working on a set of calls for the fall, and we may want to do another open community call because this was very rich. But we'll also have some speakers, so stay tuned. If anybody is not on the email list, perhaps you can just go to our website, spiritlawpolitics.org, and sign up there and on our newsletter, and you'll get announcements of other calls. So many thanks again, Duncan, and to everyone for joining.
Thank
It was
you,
a
Dennis.
privilege to be
Thank
with
you
you.
all.
Thank you all.
Love
Take
you.
care.
Okay. Bye, everyone.